What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Well Man's Podcast. My name is Brian Brosey. I'm joined by my friend and co-host, Keone Tita. Keone, how are you today?
Doing wonderful. Hi, everybody out there. Brian and I wanted to talk about recycling today, and I had some questions about it, and it's definitely something that we feel that everybody should try to do, because I don't know if you've heard, Brian, we have this big thing called the Pacific Garbage Patch, right? It's about what they say. It's about the size of Texas, somewhere floating in the Pacific Ocean, and a lot of that is just plastic that's floating around out there, and debris that gets into waterways and stuff and ends up out there. And so now there's this big project of trying to clean that up, and it has a devastating effect on wildlife and, of course, the environment and stuff like that. And nobody likes walking through a national park or forest or anything and then seeing trash all strewn through there.
Yeah,
and all of that just ends up into our environment. So what can we at the individual level do, and how do we appropriately recycle?
Okay.
So do you do it in your own home?
So since we've moved to Florida, I have not been recycling because they do not collect recycling. So I'm excited to get educated on how I can start doing it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things you can do in your community as far as if they don't collect, if they don't have a regular recycling collection, but there's a lot of drop-off places and things like that. A lot of things that you can do where you're not generating a lot of waste.
Yeah.
But so here in Winston, or most towns and cities, they do have a recycling collection. And for us, it's like comes every 2 weeks on a certain day. And the things that you can recycle, that should be recycled, are cardboard. All cardboard can be recycled for the most part. So any packaging that's made of cardboard can go. All paper. I think paper makes up like 25% of our municipal waste stream, and I think Americans are pretty good about recycling that. We're up to like almost close to 70% of recycling paper.
Oh, wow.
But think about how much paper we generate, right? So even in your own home. And so what I like to do, and I tell a lot of my clients, is just to have certain recycling bins around the house. So in my house, I have we have the trash can for stuff that's going to the landfill. And then we have just your regular recycling bin that will take things like, plastic bottles and glass bottles, paper and cardboard. And then we have something for food scraps and compost in there. So I'd like to basically go through, all of that.
Okay. Yeah. Do you put the compost in your garden?
Yes.
Yeah.
So over time, we could start there with the compost. It's just basically food scraps. It's mostly vegetable matter. I mean, I guess one question people have is, that you probably shouldn't do is, put your meat waste or animal waste products like milk and dairy and eggs and stuff into that vegetable compost. And a couple of reasons for that is because it can definitely attract wildlife that you probably don't want, right? So we're talking about, could attract, depending on where you live, bears and raccoon, vermin. It can attract, all kinds of bugs and pests, rats that you probably don't want. So that's one reason. And then also when you throw in meat waste in with vegetable compost matter, it just doesn't break down as fast. So there are special compost little bins that will do meat scraps and stuff like that. And the other thing, if you don't have that special bin for composting that, it creates it can smell really bad as compared to, vegetable waste matter.
Yeah. Now, what about eggshells, Keone?
So eggshells typically can be put into a vegetable matter compost. It's really not that bad, but still it can be smelly and attract vermin that you probably don't want to see around. But typically I will. That's the one thing I will use. I will use eggshells in the vegetable compost. But other people say no, just put all the animal products and scraps in one thing, or just toss them out and then have your regular vegetable compost bin. But eggshells are fine for the most part.
Okay.
And that's great. And why would you want to do that? Because you're really helping recycle the soil.
Yeah.
The soil around your property. I live in downtown Winston, and we have very little property where we can plant stuff on, but we do make do. We have a big compost bin, and with that compost bin, we were able to plant a fig tree that's like produces like crazy. We were able to regenerate the soil, where we have blueberry bushes on the property, and grow, and we just finished up our tomatoes and things like that. So it really helps with the soil, especially in an urban area, to do that. So that's one way to help recycle and help with the soil.
Yeah, and benefit yourself there too with your garden.
Right, and benefit yourself. So what can you recycle as far as the regular recycling bin? Well, we said cardboard. Of course, all paper. That includes things like regular printer paper. It includes envelopes, things like that you may get in the mail. It's probably not going to include very special types of paper that have plastics in them or anything like that, but just your regular paper. And then almost all bottles glass bottles. So any color glass. Where you probably can't recycle is glass that's not in a bottle. So for example, like window panes or mirrors or what else? Oven windows, things like that.
Yeah, any glass.
Right. So, and then plastics. Everybody's probably knows about the when you look at something that's made of plastic, you see a little like recycle symbol with a number in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And usually the numbers 1 and 2 on plastic bottles are going to be okay to recycle. So that's going to be any of your food-based containers. So yogurt containers. I don't know, think about plastic water bottles or plastic juice bottles. You also, with those bottles, can recycle the lids there. And with on the other hand, with glass jars and bottles, a lot of times those little lids or tops cannot be recycled. Also, most places that recycle don't, it doesn't really matter as long as the jar is somewhat empty. It's not necessary that you need to clean it out, although, by cleaning it out or rinsing it out in the sink before you recycle it will cut down on the smell in a recycle bin. So what about cans, like aluminum cans, sardine cans, soda cans? All of that stuff can be recycled too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hopefully you don't have too many soda cans if you're listening to this podcast. But do you know what those numbers mean, Keone? The numbers that are like in the recycle symbol?
Yeah, those numbers are basically designating the type of plastic that it is.
Okay.
And let's see, we can probably, let me see if I can get more specific than that.
The biggest memory I have of going to one of those, I guess one of the stations you stop by that you can recycle at, is I used to, when I was a kid, I remember going there with my dad a few times, and he was the biggest one who would recycle because he had a garden and he had a compost pile and things like that. And that was my first real intro into serious recycling. Stopping by at a place, you had everything segmented out, whether it was paper or this type of color of glass or this type of color of glass, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so to go back to your question, your numbers. It's basically those symbols, those numbers were just basically created by plastic manufacturers to help identify the plastic resin. that container is made out of, or that bag is made out of. It's called an SPI, resin identification code. SPI stands for Society of Plastics. So there is a Society of Plastics out there that designates this. But usually the resin identification code 1, which is the type of plastic, is PET, polyethylene terephthalate, is what that, I think that's what that stands for. And then the resin code of 2 is HDPE, and I think that's high density polyethylene. The designation 3 is more of like a vinyl type plastic, and so on and so on. But you can look these up online, and usually the resin identification code, the 1 and the 2, are going to be recycled mostly.
Okay.
That's basically all your household stuff.
Okay. So it sounds like it's pretty important to the people who are, I guess, in the plant or doing the recycling, or actually breaking it down and recycling the product. But as far as we, the base level consumer, trying to recycle our used goods, do we, those numbers aren't so important to us, are they? What it seems.
Say that again, Brian.
So yeah, we as the base level consumer, the numbers aren't necessarily super important for us to pay attention to. That's more so the person at the recycling plant, figuring out how to process these goods. Is that correct, or is that wrong?
Yeah, well, yes, but so if you're throwing in numbers that have like the designation of 6 and 7, which are other types of plastics, you're probably into your recycle bin. What can happen to you is they may not even pick up that recycle bin when you put it on the curb, because they're going to see that there's all types of things in there that they cannot take.
Okay. So yeah.
So that's where it becomes important, and it depends on the city where you're in, because many cities have may take those or have designated areas for those, and that's just something calling your city.
Okay.
So, and every big town or city has like almost a recycling center or something like that. Or you can call, like in Winston-Salem, it's called CityLink. You just call and you can ask for recycling, and they actually have like little brochures and handouts that will go through everything that could be recycled. But in general, it's usually the 1 and 2 designation that is going to be easily recycled. The other designations, and these tend to be the harder plastics, okay? The softer plastics, like the bags that you may get at a food store, which, by the way, a lot of those plastic bags are beginning to be banned. And I think, I'm not mistaken, in some European countries and Australia and stuff, they're starting to ban the use of those. But those can be recycled. They just can't be put into your regular recycle bin. A lot of stores will take them, so you can collect those bags and a lot of times bring them back to a food store that will recycle those specifically. So I know here, like for Lowe's Home Goods, Lowe's Foods, they usually have bins designated for those soft plastic bags and stuff. So it's really about finding ways to and where to bring the stuff, because most of the waste that you generate can be recycled if you know what you're doing. So for example, like old clothing can be recycled or can be brought to places like Goodwill. Some old clothing they'll use as stuffing as an insulation for stuff, or to remake pillows and things like that. So it's just one of these things where you just have to call and find out.
Yeah. And certainly as a college student, when I was graduating from Auburn, I took a bunch of clothes to like a Plato's Closet and, got $150 or whatever I could for it. And that helped me move to Florida. And then the rest of it I did take to Goodwill or, something like that. So it's definitely can benefit you, as the consumer itself.
Right. And me as a consumer too. I mean, I really tend to use a lot of secondhand stuff anyway. I will use secondhand stores for clothing and stuff just to, play my part as far as, recycling and being put in that recycle stream. So whenever I can, I'll do that instead of constantly buying new stuff. But that's also part of recycling. One thing I will say about going back to the plastic bottles, I see a lot of people, especially in the gym, who are carrying around like milk jugs that they're filling with water as their water jug and stuff. And And really, those plastics, what I would say to them that do that is you really want to use bottles that kind of have the harder plastics. The softer plastics will tend to leach quite a bit and are really best for one use, right? So if you have a milk jug, a plastic milk jug, it's probably best just to use it until you finish it with that milk jug, and not reuse it instead, unless you have a designated known use for that plastic that's being to use as a water bottle.
Yeah.
So a lot of this stuff will leach, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we hear a lot about there's a lot of compounds in plastics. That's another reason another thing that people can do is, when possible, is try not to buy plastic. Try to buy stuff that's made of glass.
Yeah, especially you don't want to be drinking that jug of water for a full week. I see people doing that all the time. Man, I've been using the same jug all week long, and they're taking swigs out of it, and you see the spit from their mouth to the jug, and you're like, oh man, there's definitely something growing in there.
Right. Right. So I tend to use with stuff in the gym and stuff. I tend to use more glass containers for
Mhm.
water and stuff. But so what else with that? So to just recap, people really just need to call their local authorities and seeing what can be recycled. And usually there's plenty of programs, probably, Brian, even in where you are, there's
Mhm.
probably local places where you can recycle or bring things to recycle. I mean, it's much easier if you actually have a curbside pickup, but I know a lot of towns and maybe even some cities that may not have that in the U.S. But it's very important, and it's especially important with household hazardous waste, because you definitely don't want to just throw that into the regular trash can. All right. So what am I talking about there? I'm talking about like paint cans, varnishes, even some like cleaning supplies, old, what would be waste that you may generate in a carport, like old oil or used tires and stuff. I mean, those things have special designations where they need to be in it. And in Winston-Salem, there's actually a place where you can bring all that. And I think they even have a day of the year where the city will let put all your household hazardous waste out at the curb, and we'll come by and pick it up.
Mm.
But still, landfills still get that stuff in there, and that can be devastating to the environment. I mean, you're talking about maybe a quart or two of old oil contaminating like millions of gallons of water if you put it into a regular landfill.
Mhm.
Or just dump it down a sink, which some people have been known to do,
Yeah.
where it gets into the water stream. So you're talking about, really contaminating a lot of water that, again, gets recycled and reused by households. So wherever you can play a part. The hazardous waste stuff is really important because, I just don't think a lot of people know any better.
Hmm.
With it, but that there are special ways to dispose of all that stuff. And another way that you can reduce the waste with that stuff, instead of using like harsh cleansers and things like that, there's lots of neat cleaners that you can buy that are organic and biodegradable, but there's also quite a few that you can actually make, on your own. So for example, if you're looking for a good, all-purpose cleaner for the house, I mean, vinegar and water works great, or vinegar and lemon mixed with water works great, and it's antimicrobial and can keep you from using some of these harsher things that may not be so good for you or the environment.
Yeah. That water and vinegar mixture is how I wash some of my vegetables, like tomatoes and things like that.
Right. And it's great to use that stuff. I mean, I just tell people that, just once you get in the habit of doing this stuff, it's not that big of a deal. So here's some tips. About how to reduce hazardous waste in and around your home. So, if you have a clogged drain, for example, a lot of people just go buy like a very harsh synthetic chemical based drain cleaner instead of using a plunger or a plumber's snake. That would be a better way to go and a safer way to go. these are some tips that I found online for like a glass cleaner. They're talking about mixing 1 tablespoon of vinegar or lemon in a quart of water, spray on and use newspaper to dry off. How about furniture polish? Lemon juice, 1 point of mineral or vegetable oil, and wipe furniture down with it. So you're actually mixing the lemon juice into the mineral or vegetable oil to polish furniture. What about a rug deodorizer instead of using those harsh chemicals? I mean, nothing works better than baking soda. We actually talked a lot about baking soda on some on some of our podcasts as far as some of the healthy benefits of uses for it. I think we even talked about it helping with like gout and stuff like that, and maybe even some UTIs, urinary tract infections. Silver polish. This one's interesting. Boil 2 or 3 inches of water in a shallow pan with 1 teaspoon of salt or baking soda. Totally submerge the silver and boil for 2 or 3 minutes. Wipe away the tarnish. Repeat if necessary. That's just water and salt and baking soda. You know,
as a polish. As
a silver polish, yeah. So that stuff's important because you don't want to you don't want to have a lot of this stuff around your house. I mean, you want to minimize your exposure, and you certainly don't want to put it back into the waste stream, you know? Mm-hmm. So whenever possible, try not to use that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I know, you know, what about like electronics and stuff like that? Well, many places will take secondhand electronics. You can bring them to Goodwill. A lot of computer stores will take electronics and recycle them. How about appliances? There are drop-offs at landfills for appliances where they recycle the metal and stuff like that. Old furniture can be recycled pretty easily, or brought to secondhand stores and refurbished, reupholstered wherever possible. Try to use what you already have instead of spending money on brand new stuff. So, just to go over like what you can recycle, just to go down the top 10 things: cardboard, paper, food boxes, mail can be recycled, beverage cans, food cans, glass bottles, jars, glass and plastic, jugs, and these are primarily food-based containers. Plastic bottles and caps can probably all go into your recycle bin. Textiles, electronics, plastic bags, and wraps can also be recycled, but they typically don't go into a city recycle bin. They have specially designated areas and things like that you may have to call to find out. Or there may be some bins around your city. I know in the bigger cities, they actually have bins that are color coded that will tell you exactly what can go in there.
Okay.
You know, another thing, I know at Whole Foods, they actually have my dad actually makes wine, right? So we generate, we drink a lot of wine in our family, but we generate a lot of corks. So Whole Foods will recycle those corks. You just collect them. It's always a little embarrassing for me when I bring in 1,000 corks to them. But you can recycle that, right? You can recycle those.
Jaundice. Walk out with yellow wine, bring in 1,000 corks.
With all the wine, yeah. But you know, if you think about it, you probably can recycle it. Other things that probably can't be recycled, they have a designation on them as far as a recycling code. So for example, I just got this new Yeti microphone that you told me to get. Well, so the packaging came, and it was, first of all, in a plastic wrap, right, around this box. And so that plastic wrap I took off. Probably can't recycle that. That goes in the trash bin. But then after I got the plastic wrap off, got this box here. This box could be thrown into a recycle bin. But this plastic wrap right here probably has to be put in the trash, unfortunately. And then the other thing that came in was this, within my microphone came this piece, this styrofoam here. And if I look at it, I'm sure there's a designation on there. Yes. So this one has the recycling designation of 6. which typically you can't put in a regular recycle bin. So you know, that probably has to go into to the trash, or you call and see where you can recycle styrofoam, or you reuse it if you can. And then the other thing that it came in this box, so this can go into your recycle bin. It's a cardboard box, you can recycle that. And then my little manual here, you know, once I read through this and get used to using this microphone, this thing can go right into your recycle bin also. So typically the soft plastics and things like styrofoam cannot, but everything else can. But look at all that packaging, right? I mean, that's a lot.
It's ridiculous.
You know, that you're getting for that. And these things, you know, if you threw all that in the trash, it you know, think about if everybody did that. It takes up land. It really takes up space, and it will fill up a landfill quickly. So
yeah, absolutely. Now, can you talk to me about how you make this easy? Because I admitted to not necessarily recycling at the beginning there. I feel like it's almost like this analogy. I'll use this analogy. So back in the day when you could illegally download music off of like Napster or Kazaa, things like that. That's how everyone got their music, right? You illegally download your music off this because it was so easy. Then it became, and maybe not everyone, maybe this is just me, but statute of limitations is up.
Yeah, not everybody. I didn't do that, but okay. No.
So as a kid, you would download it off that or whatever. And then Amazon came around and they wanted to charge you $1. Well, I definitely can't pay $1, but then all these websites, you know, went down and da. So then you would like rip a song from YouTube and put it in your iTunes and so on and so forth. So that was like a 3-step process. Mm-hmm. Then Apple Music came out and they solved the problem for you by just having you pay $5 and making it so easy that there's no way I would go to a website to try and illegally download music that would take 2 or 3 steps. Right. And I could just pay the $5 to have Apple Music give me everything automatically on my iPhone. And so that was the reason. That's like the reason why I'm like, all right, I'm paying for Apple Music now. They make it so easy that there's no other option. It'd be stupid for me to try and get it illegally and go to this website, download this, get a virus, you know, change the format, so on and so forth. And I feel like with recycling, how do you make it easy? Because I live in a 1-bedroom apartment with my girlfriend. We have a cat. I certainly can't just like start stacking bottles for 1 or 2 weeks before I can go take them to the place around here where I can drop all that stuff off.
Right. Well, so the way I do it is I try to use stuff that I can reuse for one thing, right? So that and I also will try to help, even if I'm not recycling, I will try to get like natural cleaners and detergents and things like that, so I'm not contributing to polluting the waste stream. So that's one way. And then the thing that makes it very easy for me is that it makes it very easy when your city has a recycling program. Sure. And they usually have outside of my home, I have my big recycling bin that I put all my, you know, plastic, recyclable plastics and cardboard and paper in there. And throughout my home, you know, I just have one kind of container for all my recycles, and then, you know, a trash bin for the trash. It usually sits in the kitchen, and then I have a compost bin that sits outside on our porch. And so just having the containers around, it adds as a reminder to do it, and then also makes it easy just having it around. So that's the way to do it. And I you know, I think if you just made, I think if you called whoever you'd call in that city, the waste management department, I think you'd be pleasantly surprised. You're probably going to find ways to do it that's not going to be, you know, inhibiting your quality of life, where you're just piling up recyclables and they sit there for 2 or 3 weeks before you actually take it out. Mm-hmm. But another way you could do it, right? So if you are wherever you go food shopping or at certain food stores, most of those food stores will have containers where you can bring some recyclables too. Also using your own bags. So bringing your own bag into a food store instead of using their plastic bags, so you're not contributing to that stuff. And that's pretty easy to do. You could just have like a good sack or whatever that you reuse all the time. And when you walk into a food store, they can use that instead of, their soft plastic bags or their paper bags. So there's many ways to do it, whether you have a recycling program in your city or not. But what I find is most people don't realize how much recycling is going on within their town and how to get involved. And the cities, the towns may be to blame because they're not making it very easy for you. Mm-hmm. So some of this may just take, all right, well, I want to do what I can. And it may just take like a Google search or a quick call.
And what do you just Jacksonville Waste Management? Is that what you Googled something like that?
That's exactly right. And you could go, and I know Jacksonville would have they probably have a really good recycling program. I'd imagine there. You just have to find out what's going on. I do know that like if you I live in downtown Winston, so we have a pretty good recycling program. I think if you live a little bit further out in the suburbs and stuff, it may be a little bit more difficult. Mm-hmm. But it really does take a call, and Jacksonville, I'm almost certain has a good.
Yeah, I'm sure we're all waste here in Jacksonville.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, so I'm just, I'm right now I'm typing in Jacksonville. Yeah, in Jacksonville they have a curbside recycling. I just don't, you may be a little bit further out where you don't actually have it, and that may just be making a call where they'll just come and drop off the bin so you have it there. Mm-hmm. And then if you live in an apartment complex, the complex may have something that you may not be aware of or whatever that will help. And so at first it may seem like that's a lot to think about and a lot to do, but for me, it just becomes, after a while, it's just second nature. It's just part of the thing we do. The question's always asked when we generate trash, can you recycle that? And most of the time you can. And it goes a long way. It's about doing your part to, help this planet be a little bit more comfortable for all of us, so to speak.
Yeah, I definitely need to be doing my part. Keone, what do you think of, because this can be interesting, what do you think of places like Seattle, San Francisco, where they charge you like a 25-cent fee per bag or something like that? What do you think of that type of way to reduce bag use?
Well, I do know. Your thought. I think it works.
Okay.
It works.
It definitely works, because when I was going to Bastille for my interview and I just stopped at like a Trader Joe's or something like that, I got a handful of crap I drop on the conveyor belt, and she's like, would you like a bag? And I was like, I guess, I don't want to carry it in my pockets. And she was like, all right, well, that'll be 25 cents per bag. And I was like, holy shit, I guess I'm carrying it out in my pocket. Must have been $3.
Right. Yeah. And then on the other hand, like sometimes I think at Whole Foods, if you bring your own bag, they like take off like, a few pennies here off the bill or whatever. But yeah, a lot of those programs do work. And a lot of these things can generate cash. So in certain states, if you have a lot of glass, I think to some extent, even some plastic, you can bring it and get, a little bit of money for it. But I do know a lot of those programs where they're charging for things like that. They work. They just help people be a little bit more conscious. So I think overall, it's a good thing.
I certainly like I've never heard that Whole Foods will give you a little bit of a discount if you're bringing your own bag.
Yeah, they do. And I think like even stores like Trader Joe's will also.
That's something I can get behind, because I feel like that fits my analogy of kind of like the music analogy, where it's like, all right, you've made it so easy for me that I'm an asshole for not recycling or not using my own bag.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the key, making it easy. And I feel like with recycling, we're not there yet throughout, the whole country, but some of it just takes a little bit of work to find out what you can do, but not a lot. It's just a quick Google search, and you can find out what you can do to help reduce the waste that you generate.
Well, I'll definitely have to look into that, and hopefully next episode I can report that I am recycling my goods.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you about it. That's right. I'm gonna be on that. I'm gonna get on the Jacksonville Waste Management site and see what you can do.
All right, you give me a phone call the office, tell them that they should be expecting me. Please call Keone when someone named this.
Yeah, I'm sending the recycling police to your house. They're gonna make sure that you are recycling. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking online here, Brian. You got to get on the ball, man. Jacksonville has a pretty good program here. They have a big guide to recycling.
Okay.
Everything, yard waste to plastic waste. Oh, by the way, we didn't even talk about yard waste. Yard waste, a lot of times you'll see people like mow their grass and then put their grass in a pile and stuff like that. Makes excellent compost. A lot of times if you leave the grass in place, although some people don't like to, it just adds food to the soil, so to speak. But there are in Winston-Salem yard waste, big yard waste like tree limbs and things like that. You can bring to a designated place, like right on our street. It's only like 50 yards away from us. We just pile up the yard waste, and then every so often a truck will come by and pick that all up. And a lot of times they just make mulch out of it. The city will mulch it, and then there's a place where you can go get at times free mulch from the city. That's accumulated yard waste from different households.
Yeah, I really look forward to having a house so I can use some of my waste properly, like a compost, for example, for a garden.
Yep.
Looking forward to that.
Yes, it does it does a lot. It does a lot for you to generate food, even in an urban environment, which I'm in. And it revitalizes soil when you do all that stuff.
And it's your own little ecosystem there. Like
it's
I hope to have
it's your own
chickens in the garden and feed it that way.
Right. Oh, and by the way, Brian, here's another thing you can do. I think this is pretty important without being, neurotic about it or being a straw Nazi about it. But don't use straws, plastic straws. A lot of places will just put a straw in your glass. Those things are like one-use things that get just put in the trash. You don't need to. Or if you need to have a straw, get one that's reusable. So there's lots of little things that people can do to help. And then one of the main things to do, which to me is heresy, is like, yeah, you have trash, put it in the proper bin. Don't just throw it off to the side. So I was driving down the road the other day and saw somebody just throw a bag out the window. It's just like,
it was just compost, Keone. Don't worry.
Right, yeah, just going right into the environment. No, I think it was like a Burger King bag or McDonald's bag or something. But that type of thing, it's just like somebody has to pick that up.
Yeah, certainly.
It's I don't know, not a good thing to do.
So. You're putting trash in your body. You're sending trash out into the environment. You might want to take a look inwards. Stop eating that Burger King, throwing the bag out the window. Right. You're probably not listening to this episode, but don't do that.
That's right. That's right. So anyway, if there's any question with what you can recycle, then you should, go to the internet. So, go to at the Google and look it up, and you can probably recycle it somewhere, somehow, and be especially careful with, hazardous waste stuff. So that's like drain cleaners and paint thinners, antifreeze, fertilizers, gunpowder, fluorescent light bulbs, all those things. Those things you really those can't go right into a trash. They have to probably be taken to a hazardous waste facility, which I know Jacksonville does have one now. And then, of course, Winston-Salem does, So a lot of those things you just have to, kind of accumulate, put it in a designated area in your home. And then, once you fill up the container, you bring it to one of these facilities, or the city may come by and pick that up for you.
So a quick Google search for your local area should answer a lot of these questions.
Yeah, definitely. And municipal solid waste stuff. I mean, you can type in the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, and they have some pretty good material there. But I think you're gonna get more information from your own little community about where to go with recycling.
Yeah. Anything else, Keone? Should we poop?
No, I think that's it. Hopefully that. What's that?
I said, should we poop and freeze it and can we reuse those? Hockey pucks, you can use it as a toy.
Wherever you can contribute, Brian, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the way to think about how to recycle.
That's a fair point.
But anyway, yeah, wherever you can is a great thing to do, and then after a while of doing it, it just becomes second nature. You know, it's not a big deal, and there's you can recycle just about everything and anything, and really reduce your household trash. In the U.S., we're actually doing pretty good when you look compared to how we were recycling in the 80s and 90s. Each year is getting better and better, and so hopefully this podcast will help people out there just think about it, be a little bit more conscious about it, and seeing what they can do.
Is there a country off the top of your head that's like a model recycler?
Gosh, well, model recycler, I think a lot of the Northern European countries are ahead of us, and I don't know the statistics on that, but man, when I went to the Netherlands, they seem to be really big into recycling. Certain cities in the U.S., definitely Seattle, Portland, are, I think, at the cream of the crop with how they recycle.
Mm-hmm.
Australia is getting better and better. I think, what you're saying, where they start charging you for using plastic bags and stuff. I mean, I think some of these cities have outright banned the use of plastic bags. I think, if I'm not mistaken, maybe Brisbane, Australia has. What else? Just wherever wherever these plastics, especially the soft plastics, are causing a problem, a lot of cities have something in place that's going to try to help minimize the use of those products.
Yeah, there's a super fascinating documentary on YouTube. It's a Vice documentary about that. I think they call it like an island of trash in the Pacific. Basically what you were talking about with all that trash converging in the Pacific based off, I guess it's the way the current flows. It all kind of sits there, or kind of converges there. And that Vice documentary really makes it hit home, because you're looking out, they're in the ocean, and they just start scaling the camera out, and it's just trash as far as the eye can see. It's pretty crazy.
Right. And the wildlife consumes that, can consume that. And then a lot of the plastic you don't even see or can see, because it's been broken down into like these microscopic particles, which can be even worse.
Yeah. And likely it's going to make its way back into your food chain.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it can. And so reducing your plastic consumption goes a long way. I mean, wherever possible, try to get glass containers and things like that. Those are easily to recycle, and they're not bad. They're not as bad as plastic being out in the environment.
Yeah, and easier to reuse around your home too. You get a glass jar we got cashew queso the other day in a glass jar. Now we've recycled that glass jar, and it's holding our coffee beans.
Right. So stuff like that is helpful. Some of this you do have to do a little bit of homework on, right? Like the packaging, like if you get light bulbs, you should read them and read the packaging. And a lot of times it will tell you if you can go into trash or not. Certain light bulbs can go in the trash, certain batteries can go in the trash, but other ones certainly cannot go in the trash. They're just going to be a environmental hazard, a pollution hazard if you put them in there. So reading some of the little print on your packaging can really help also.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Well, I hope that helps some people. It certainly helped me before we preparing for this podcast about what I can do to improve my recycling.
Yeah, and it certainly made me feel a little bit of shame. So next week I'll have my recycling bin out. I'll contact the waste management.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely contact them. I'm gonna ask you next podcast. I'm gonna test you on that.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. This is our first episode. I know we mentioned it a while back about the new microphones. This is our first episode with both of us having the new microphones. So let us know how we sound. If anything sounds off, please do let us know. We'll get it corrected.
Yes, there's a period of time where I need to get used to this thing. So hopefully in the next few podcasts, I won't be in and out.
We're going to get an attachment to Keone's chest, so it sticks right in front of his chest the whole time. I promise.
We are improving, though. Yes, I'm finally got my microphone, so I'm happy about that.
All right, everybody. Take care. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you.
Bye.